one hand, there's working to fast-track results for affordability, safety, and security, and asking tough questions to hold the government to account. The latter is not going to stop. We're going to keep holding the government accountable for high grocery costs, out-of-control crime, broken immigration, and our weak economy, which economists say is on life support. That at the same time, we can walk and chew gum, and that means we're going to work today. I'm going to say to the Prime Minister, let's work together to fast-track results for an affordable, safe, self-reliant economy.
It was a cross-partisan tete-a-tete in Ottawa this afternoon with Prime Minister Mark Carney and Conservative Leader Pierre Poilievre meeting face-to-face up on Parliament Hill. It's the first meeting between the two leaders in 2026, and it lasted about 30 minutes. Poilievre had posted a video on X Monday afternoon where he said he was seeking an urgent meeting with the Prime Minister to bring, quote, practical solutions and openness to hear other ideas and work together to fast-track results. The Prime Minister's office, meanwhile, said in a statement to CTV News earlier this week that Carney was looking forward to meeting with opposition party leaders to discuss their priorities as this new sitting progresses. So sort of saying it was more of a de rigueur, regular thing that was happening, and that they met with, the Prime Minister rather met with the interim leader of the NDP, Don Davies, last week. Our front bench is here to talk about the political stakes of the meeting this afternoon. Sharon Carr, Laura D'Angelo, Jamie Ellerton, and Sebastian Skamsky are all back. Sharon, I'll start with you on this one. And I will point out both, no reporters allowed in to take any pictures in there or any video, but both men's offices have posted photos and readouts. That's the new cool word, readout. Everyone's putting out a readout about what happened here. The readouts don't say a lot. We'll get into them in a second. But what do you think? Why do you think this happened now, Sharon?
Well, it's interesting to hear Poilievre's team's statement on it. It was actually the Prime Minister who requested the meeting, not only with Poilievre but with other opposition leaders, but it was at the request of the Prime Minister. I think part of this might have to do with the fact that there's all this rumor of an election coming, and I think the tone and tenor we're seeing from Mr. Poilievre is him trying to seem like he's working with the government and not to come off as aggressive and defensive and divisive. So it's interesting to see how he's actually trying to make it appear so that he's going to work together. Now, there are shared mutual areas of interest, things like bail reform, tougher crime penalties, cost of living, affordability, all these things. But if you looked at the picture that both offices put out, it was there was a lot of space between the two, and I was going to make some sort of heated rivalry comment here, but I'm not going to do it and butcher it. But it didn't seem like a super warm and fuzzy, just more of a kind of had to do it type of meeting.
I don't know, they're smiling in this picture that I think this is the one that Mr. Poilievre's office put out, correct me if I'm wrong, in the control room. And in the other one, Sebastian, the photos released by the offices certainly don't look necessarily unfriendly. Why do you think politically both individuals would want to have this meeting at this moment in time, Seb?
Well, I think on the Prime Minister's part, he, despite his best efforts, remains in a minority position. So he probably wants to secure some support on key planks of his winter agenda. I think on the part of Mr. Poilievre, since the convention really kicked off by the convention speech, I think Mr. Poilievre has shown Canadians that he is really a Prime Minister in waiting, that patriotism is kind of the leading virtue with which he is guided, and that he's going to work with even a Liberal government, a Prime Minister who has failed Canadians to, on the edges and on some of the issues of overlap, create a common space, and to make sure that those things are pushed ahead so that Canadians, in the end, in the interim, while we are stuck with this Liberal government, nonetheless suffer less. And I think we're going to see that again around issues that affect Canadians most on the domestic file.
I sort of see the politics of this as well, Laura, and I'd love to get your thoughts on it. From a multitude of perspectives, I don't think anyone wants to take the blame for forcing an election, even if one party stands to benefit at this moment in time more than the other. I do feel like there is concern about voters punishing whoever is seen, whichever party is seen, to be pushing for an election. And I do think in the case of Mr. Poilievre, and we interviewed at length Steve Outhouse, the campaign manager, a few days ago here, who was very, specific about saying, yes, this is... we do concede that there's, issues around tone and that kind of thing, and this is part of us, sort of putting forward overtures to show that, like, we aren't just about opposing everything?
Certainly no one right now wants to be the person or the party to send the country to an election. I don't think there's a Canadian that really wants that right now. And so there is a certain amount of this that is both sides ensuring Canadians know we are collaborative and working together. I also question some of that collaboration. I really hope it's true. There are really big things that have to get through Parliament and get through committee to be able to even happen and come into law and be legislated. So I hope that he means it. I think there are little signs that maybe this is more of a tone shift and less of a substantive shift. I think he said on who requested the meeting. It's been reported now.
Good point.
Right? Like, it's
Kind
been
of
reported
ridiculous,
now in multiple outlets that it was the PM first, and then there's a tweet that it isn't, and like a little ridiculous. We also saw today that, Pierre Poilievre showed up to a 1:30 meeting at 1:30 p.m. and scrummed for 11 minutes. And so if the Prime Minister hadn't then extended the meeting on the other end, Pierre Poilievre would have had 20 minutes of his 30-minute meeting with the Prime Minister. And that's not exactly a sign of collaboration. Now, it's also a scrum, so who knows what that means. But there are signals that maybe this is more of a political game and less of actual collaboration working for Canadians.
The easiest way to quash that kind of possibility, Jamie, would be for there to be stuff in the coming weeks that they say, okay, X, Y, and Z is what we are going to actually advance together. And Pierre Poilievre, in his original letter, had put forward, some of the legislation around diversifying trade, approving trade deals, for example. It ended up being the GST rebate boost. There's a few, the crime legislation, the bail reform. There's some opportunity for everybody to say, hey, we meant what we said.
Yeah, I think the politics are quite interesting. I think they both benefit from having this meeting today. For Mark Carney, you get to see you're the Prime Minister, you're meeting with leaders, you're trying to make a minority parliament work. And for Pierre Poilievre, I think if you look at where the Conservatives are at right now, they clearly need to make up more support amongst the people who don't currently think they'll ever vote Conservative, who otherwise would have been open to it in the past. And I think this helps advance that. I don't think you'll ever get the gratification of hearing them call this a pivot, but I do think in terms of like the substance of how they're going to go about it, this is a chance for it to work. I think how often have you heard Conservatives on your show or in the House of Commons in recent months talk about all the ideas that Mark Carney is enacting that they say were authored by Conservatives originally? And so that to me says there's a mega majority in Parliament, a very super majority working coalition that could move fast and get a lot of things done if they actually just work together and put their swords down, as opposed to just constantly thinking about whatever the next election is going to be. And so I'm not going to try and be naive about this. Obviously, this is political parties, this is Ottawa. That's never going to be more than the third question away in terms of what comes next. But there's actually a real opportunity here to do what Canadians want this Parliament to do and get the job done. And for Pierre Poilievre, any day you get to control a message of showing you're working with the government constructively on issues while also offering some critiques, they can do that. I think to pick up on Laura's point, Vash, I don't need to tell you, anyone in Ottawa can walk past a scrum whenever they want. The fact that he did that for 11 minutes, that he wanted to give a message out, and very much was part of the exercise and showing that he's trying to do what he can in Parliament to, while holding the government account, find a way to deliver for Canadians and make this Parliament work.
And the ultimate message that they seem to have pivoted to, Sharon, is one of saying to voters, we're not going to be as oppositional as perhaps you've perceived us before, but ask yourselves the question, is your life better now than it was a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago? That seems to be the message now that they're driving home versus what we might have heard even 2 months ago.
Yeah, that's a big shift, right? And it's different to hear someone like Poilievre say that, because we've heard his song and dance in the past around trying to pin things on Trudeau and trying to pin things on the carbon tax. And I think he's finally maybe shifting to say, hey, Carney's been around for the last year almost now. How do I pivot on that front? So I think there is a shift in tone. We've heard multiple Conservative strategists come out and say that there needs to be a tie-in to what's happening here domestically to the U.S. and trying to find a way to pivot on that front. So I think maybe that has clued in and clicked in with him and how he communicates. And I think maybe we're going to see more of that. And I think a lot of the performativeness around this meeting, around Giovanni going to the U.S., all these bits and pieces is their attempt to show that they're looking at the bigger picture than just some comms lines.
Last 30 seconds to you, Seb.
Listen, I think it's a great day for Canada when the Leader of the Opposition extends an effort to the Prime Minister to have a constructive dialogue about things that can be improved. I think that's really what we need to look at. I know Sharon and Laura perhaps are seeing this from a more malicious perspective, but I think let's take a step back. Let's see at what Mr. Poilievre has offered to Prime Minister Carney, and I think let's look forward to those fruitful results and perhaps move the country in a bit of a more conservative direction so that Canadians suffer ever so slightly less.
Ladies, it's hard to know. Are you magnanimous or are you malicious? It's a tough, it's a tough one. Thanks to our front bench. Appreciate it as always, guys. Sharon Carr, Jamie Ellerton, Sebastian Skamsky, and Laura D'Angelo.